because that's how you expand yourself. That's how you expand your capacity in life so that you can achieve more. Because I feel like we all want more, but we don't always take the actions to achieve more because our brain holds us back. Most people spend time in the matrix, the part of the matrix that you didn't really talk about, which is the familiar and the comfortable. So I challenge one of you to step out every day in one of those areas. Welcome to the Kingspiration Podcast. This is the place where you'll learn how to get unstuck and gain momentum in your life and business. Each week, we tackle the real aspects of entrepreneurship, personal development, relationships, and fitness. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA, entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa, entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures, sharing wisdom and experiences to propel you forward. Welcome to Kingspiration. Let's start the conversation.
All right, so Justin and I were just catching up, and last week I was in Toronto for a speaking engagement, but the day before I did something really cool that I thought I would never do. I went to the CN Tower, which is the tallest structure in Toronto. It's kind of an iconic part of Toronto skyline, and it has the edge walk where you can walk around the outside edge of the tower, and all you have attached to you is a rope, two ropes with a harness. And it was super scary. It's actually the tallest in the world. They hold the Guinness World Record for tallest freestanding walkable structure in the world, or I think the title something like that. But it was more terrifying than I even imagined it would be once I got up there. And we were talking about how the amygdala will shut off, will try to protect you. And at one point, my feet couldn't even move forward. When she was first like, okay, walk out and stick your toes over the ledge. I thought it would be easy, but as I walked towards the edge, my brain literally pushed my feet back. So absolutely thrilling experience, because by the time we were done with it, I was leaning off of the building, arms free. I mean, it was super cool, and it was good to overcome that mental challenge. But one of my friends asked, why do you do stuff like that? Most people don't. And I said, well, I like to do things that make me uncomfortable because I feel like it exercises that muscle. And I feel like better things happen in my life when I push myself in those situations. And my friend said, most people don't think like that. I said, really? Well, I guess you're right. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Justin?
The first thing that comes to mind is this idea. We all throw it around a lot, is living in a comfort zone and then needing to step outside of the comfort zone. And I think that's just you embracing, in possibly quite an extreme way, stepping outside of the comfort zone. And I think as entrepreneurs, and Ethan, for you as an entrepreneur of 20 odd years, 30 years, not 30, I'm being cocky there. but that is all about stepping outside of your comfort zone. And I think that this just extends to now doing it in a physical way, just doing more of what you used to. But what I came across, so Judith Bardwick is the lady who came up with the term comfort zone. I can't remember how long ago, but she gives a detailed description of what a comfort zone is. And I'm going to butcher the detailed description, except there's 4 key components to it. And I'm really testing I'm stepping out of my comfort zone now to test my memory here. But the first is operating in an anxiety neutral condition. So when you're seeking a comfort zone, you're seeking to just have this anxiety neutral condition. And what we've got to realize is anxiety is stimulus, and stimulus causes you to act. So you want some of it. A good amount of anxiety, or the right kind of anxiety, is healthy for us to take action. So operating in an anxiety neutral condition, or trying to seek to be in an anxiety neutral condition, is not optimal. And then the second is just operating using the same set of behaviors, essentially. So we're wanting an anxiety neutral condition in which we can use the same set of behaviors. And if we're using the same set of behaviors, we're not looking at the opportunity to grow. We're not looking for new ways to do things. We're not looking at the ability to challenge ourselves. So again, that's comfort zone. Off the back of that, if you anxiety neutral, same set of behaviors, ultimately what you are going to get, and then the third point is a steady step or a steady level of results. So again, comfort zone, staying in your comfort zone means that you're going to maintain the status quo. You're going to get what you've always got. You're going to flatline, you're going to plateau. And whether that's in building business, whether that's training, if you are just doing what you've always done. You get the steady level of results. And the last point number 4, and I think I have remembered all of them, is without any sense of risk. So being in the comfort zone is you do not want to have any feeling of potential risk at all. And we know that with risk comes reward. With no risk kind of comes very, very little. Trevor Mowat is the one who says that the touchdown winning pass, or the pass to win the Super Bowl, exists in the moment, that the pass that could potentially be intercepted to lose the Super Bowl, they exist in the same moment. And there's risk attached to both of those. You've got to step outside of your comfort zone to let that ball rip, and hopefully it's going to be a touchdown. What we do know is if you hold on to the ball, either way you're going to be losing. So sorry, I've gone on a bit of a long monologue here, but that's the very first thing that jumped to mind, is this idea of comfort zone. We all throw it around so much, but once you break down what the actual description is, one of those 4 things, you start understanding the steps that you can take to challenge yourself to step outside of those. And I think the story that you've just shared now is you do that incredibly well. You live it every day in your business. And now you also try and experience that in a slightly, I suppose, a slightly more real way in the real world by going to the top of one of the tallest buildings in the world.
And I mean, there are always levels to it, right? I mean, there are certainly a lot of people who are way more adventurous than I am. I mean, that was a relatively safe tourist attraction compared to, some people who will go in the jungle and camp for days or weeks without any type of food or anything, or go on these survival trips. Or you have people who would actually bungee jump in weird places. I mean, there are a lot of more adrenaline pumping things that you could do. You know what convinced me to do it? I was looking on Instagram when I was deciding if I was going to book my ticket. I went through Instagram to see some of the videos of people who had done it, and I saw a picture of Richard Branson up there, CN Tower, and you know how adventurous he is. Like, that's kind of his brand, right? Being this adventurous entrepreneur. And he said in his caption, he said that it's one of the scariest things that he's done. As adventurous as he is, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, as adventurous as I am, this is one of the scariest things I've done. And I was like, oh man, if Branson did it, then I have to do it. But yeah, the way you broke it down, I think that was excellent. Can you go through those steps again? What were they?
So the first one is, if you're in a comfort zone, what you're doing is you're operating in an anxiety neutral condition, using the same set of behaviors to get a similar set of results without a sense of risk. That's essentially what you're saying you want to do. And maybe we can chat about this at some stage. I've built a whole model. I love a matrix. And I've got the idea that stepping out of the comfort zone is you can kind of dip your toe in the water. And I've got an adaptability zone, a transformative zone, and then an exploratory zone. So we can choose which of those we're wanting to go into. And those are kind of when I built a matrix using familiarity and comfort, rather than just focusing on the comfort zone itself. So sometimes you can step into something that's familiar but uncomfortable. Sometimes you can step into something that is unfamiliar and uncomfortable, which is the transformative zone. And what is the third one that I've left out? Sometimes you can step into that which is unfamiliar but comfortable. I might have already said that. But ultimately,
unfamiliar but comfortable. Okay.
Yeah. But ultimately, the way that I like to think of the comfort zone is to use it use it as your home base. So Ethan, have you ever played paintball or laser tag or something of that nature? You get divided into teams and you've got your home base. And the principle, the idea is to go and get the flag and the opposing team's base. And you'll get together at your home base, formulate your strategy, and then off you go. And as soon as you step out, you're outside of your comfort zone, because home base is comfort. Home base is comfort zone. There's no risk there. It's all those things. There's same set of behaviors. You're going to get the same result if you stay there. It's anxiety neutral, and it's super safe. There's no risk. As soon as you step out, you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. But you can't always live outside your comfort zone, because as soon as you step out of that comfort zone, the pulse rises. So as soon as you're outside of your home base, the pulse is rising, and there's anxiety, and you're a little bit concerned, and you're trying to really prevent yourself from being shot, not killed in this instance. But so you go out and you go on your journey, on your strategy, on this what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, stepping outside of your comfort zone, really trying to go after this goal that you want. If you don't quite get it, what do you do at some point? You realize, okay, we've got to retreat back to our home base. So you go back to your comfort zone and you take stock. And the way I see it is if you live outside of your comfort zone all the time, and I'm going to use the term burnout quite loosely here, that's probably a recipe for getting burnt out at some stage, because that's generally meaning things are unfamiliar and uncomfortable all at the same time. So what you want to do is you want to spend shorter periods out, either in what I call the transformative zone or this adaptive or exploratory zone, learn, gather information, grow yourself, get used to some of this anxiety, gather new skills, get used to these different things that you're doing, and then go back to your comfort zone to recoup, regather, take stock of where you're at. But the beautiful thing is you don't always necessarily have to go back to the comfort zone, because as soon as you start spending time outside of your comfort zone, what it actually means is your comfort zone starts to get bigger. So instead of thinking that you're stepping out and then having to go back, because lots of people don't like this idea of going back, you're not. You're stepping out, and as you start to get used to and engage and build these new skills, your comfort zone actually grows bigger. So that home base almost means you've acquired new areas within that field of play, in that laser tag or that paintball, and your home base is now actually bigger, and you've got more area that's a comfort zone, and you don't feel there's no anxiety and all of that, and you can go back in there and re-strategize, and that's beautiful. And as you step out again, your comfort zone again grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and ultimately it will eventually encompass your opposing team's flag, and you've kind of won in that respect. But that's the beautiful thing about it. Every time you spend outside of your comfort zone, it actually grows slightly bigger. And we've got to just start embracing that moment of not realizing or not thinking that being outside of my comfort zone is this horrible, uncomfortable time that is negatively impacting me, and rather see it as a beautiful opportunity to adapt, to transform, and to explore new things that can ultimately help you grow as a team, or as an individual, as a CEO, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, or whatever it may be.
So it makes me think about something in that matrix. The last one that we explored was unfamiliar but comfortable. And I was thinking, like, what does that, like, what's an example of something that's unfamiliar but comfortable? And I guess the more things that you do, it can be a not the exact same thing, but familiar to your brain. So It could be, maybe you haven't done the exact thing, but you did something maybe in a completely different field. For example, I walked around the CN Tower. So now that's familiar to me, but I've never raised $1 million for a business. Never done any type of investor type round like that. But maybe now if I step out there and try to raise $1 million, even though that's unfamiliar to me, perhaps my brain will kick in and be like, well, you climbed the CN Tower, and maybe it would draw a parallel. I'm kind of asking here. I don't know. I'm reaching. Does that happen?
So I think a good way to look at it, if we run through that matrix, let's use public speaking as a good example, because if the way I see it, if we're wanting to, so comfort zone is you're speaking on your topic that you are an expert on, and you're speaking in your hometown on a stage that you have spoken at 1 million times before. So you're comfortable with the content, and you're very familiar with the external environment. And that for me is the best way to think about comfortable and familiar. Comfortable makes me feel good. So it's internal. So it's more feeling. Familiar is a little bit more external. What is around you, and how well do you know that area? So you're selling products. You're familiar with the territory that you're in. As soon as you go to a new territory, a new state, a new country, that becomes unfamiliar. So if we step outside of the comfort zone now, and we go to, and I've just got to make sure that I'm drawing this the right way, but we go to that which is unfamiliar but still comfortable. That could be you're still speaking about the same topic. You still it's your area of expertise. So super comfortable, makes you feel good. But what is unfamiliar is you stepping onto a new stage, possibly in a new country where the audience speaks a different language. Now, how is that going to land? So now that's very unfamiliar territory that you're in, but you're still super comfortable and confident around your content because you've delivered it a lot of times. So that is one area that you can live. Then the other is when you're stepping into this area of, so where are we now? We are comfortable. Well, sorry. We are familiar. I'm just drawing it out here, and comfortable. Then we will be uncomfortable and familiar. So uncomfortable and familiar is now public speaking again, is going to be speaking in your hometown on your stage that you've spoken on 1 million times, very familiar with the people, all speak the same language, all speak English in this case, whatever it may be. But you're feeling a little uncomfortable now because you've got to speak on a topic that you've never spoken about before. this is just something that's come up and you thought would be cool to start speaking about for the first time. And all of a sudden you've got to jump on the stage and do that. So everything's familiar. So you feel at ease from that point of view, but it's quite uncomfortable because I don't know how this topic is going to be received. I never mentioned it to anybody before. So how do you embrace that? And then lastly is when you're stepping into this zone where it's uncomfortable and it's unfamiliar. So that is now a brand new topic that you're wanting to speak about. You've never spoken about it before, and you're delivering it for the first time on the other side of the planet on a new stage to an audience who spends who speaks a different language.
Oh
and that's
my
what
God.
I call that. That's the zone that I call is your transformative zone, transformative zone, because you spend some time there, and that's huge growth that happens. Man, the learnings that you're going to walk away with there. But if you spend all your time there, you'll be exhausted. You'll be absolutely exhausted. So you need to spend some time there and then make your way back to that comfort zone. But as I say, the comfort zone's actually got bigger. So you're not going all the way to, it's not like do not pass, go back to start. It's like you've spent time here. You only have to, you're 1 degree away from comfort zone now because your comfort zone's got so much bigger. So maybe that's a good way in the context of public speaking of thinking about it.
No, that's perfect. That really, because I could feel even when you talked about speaking to an audience on the other side of the world, I'm envisioning like this crowd of 10,000 people who all in Mandarin as their primary language, and they want me to speak about gardening or something like that. And I'm like, oh my God, I would be like, because I don't know anything about gardening. So, but you know what? That's interesting because I thought, well, what would I do in that situation? I'm playing this out in my head as you're talking, right? And I would take on that challenge, but most people wouldn't. But I would take on that challenge. But the first thing I would do, and this shows you something about the brain, I would study the audience, and I would study gardening and try to figure out how to make it relatable to me, how to make it more familiar to me, and how to deliver that message so it's most impactful to the audience. That our brain craves familiarity because that's the first thing my mind went to. This is good. I mean, we talk about this all day. This is awesome.
No, we could. So as a reminder now, let me get these right because I was a little unprepared. But so you've got your what I call there, and I put this model together, and I quite like it. I must admit, every time I've used this in team conversations, the conversation has gone deep. It's been a really good conversation because people love to give a name to something, and this helped them to understand how they can step outside of their comfort zone. So the first one was the exploratory. I call it the exploratory zone. And that's where you're looking at something that's unfamiliar, but comfortable. So that's you're exploring something new. You're exploring essentially a new territory. If we think about it in the context of what we've just spoken about. Then the next zone is the adaptive zone. So that's where it's familiar, but it's uncomfortable. So it's a new topic. Same audience that you're very familiar with, but it's a new topic. So now you're adapting as an individual. You're changing your content, you're changing your area of expertise, perhaps you're changing your delivery style slightly because of its content specific. And that's all about adapting. And then, as I said, the last one is transform. It's truly transformative. It's because it's uncomfortable and it's unfamiliar. And that's huge. New stage, new topic. So those are the three areas that you want to be stepping into. And maybe this is a challenge for everybody listening. Give some thought to it. Where can you explore? So things that you're very comfortable with at the moment. Where could you look for opportunities where it's unfamiliar, but you're still comfortable with what you're doing? Where could you explore? Where can you look for opportunities to adapt? So it's familiar, but you want to challenge yourself around some of the key skills that you perhaps need and have. So where can you adapt? And then if you're feeling really brave, and a lot of times you get put into this situation, but where do you spend time in that transformative zone where things are completely new, unfamiliar, and uncomfortable? And spend some time in there, but then make sure that you're coming back to that comfort zone to recoup, regather, re-strategize, and then you can start going out again into the adaptive and exploratory zones.
That's awesome. That's a whole talk right there. I mean, like that is, that's deep because each one gets a little bit more mentally exhausting, right? Maybe not a little bit more, maybe a lot more, like as you go around those parts of those parts of the matrix. But I guess to wrap this up, I would encourage everyone to try to be intentional about stepping outside of your comfort zone every day, putting your foot into one of those three parts of that matrix. Because that's how you expand yourself. That's how you expand your capacity in life so that you can achieve more. Because I feel like we all want more, but we don't always take the actions to achieve more because our brain holds us back. Most people spend time in the matrix, the part of the matrix that you didn't really talk about, which is the familiar and the comfortable. So I challenge one of you to step out every day in one of those areas.
I think that's spot on. That's a great challenge to leave everybody with. Ethan, thank you. This was a goodie.
All right. Thank you. That's a wrap for today's episode of Kingspiration. We hope this conversation sparked insights to ignite action in your life and business.
We're on this journey together, sharing our challenges and successes to help all of us take the next step towards building momentum and ultimately reaching our goals.
If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone else who might benefit and leave us a 5-star review.
And remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly conversations. Until next time, keep rolling, keep growing, and keep being inspired.